The helicopter sat ready to launch, rotors still, fuel loaded. The CEO was out of time. "Find me a pilot or the deal is dead," she snapped. No pilots, no options. Panic rising. Then a janitor stepped forward. "I'll fly it." The CEO burst into laughter, looked him up and down, then smirked coldly. "Fly this helicopter and I'll marry you." Everyone laughed with her. None of them knew. They had just mocked one of the finest military pilots America had ever trained. 15 minutes earlier. Victoria Cross, yes, that was actually her name, and yes, she weaponized it in every boardroom, stood on the rooftop helipad of Cross Industries Tower in downtown Chicago, her Louboutins clicking against concrete like a countdown timer. Tick, tick, tick. Her phone screen glowed with the kind of message that could collapse empires. "Hawthorne Industries will sign with Patterson Corp. If you're not here by 2 p.m., no exceptions. Gerald Hawthorne." It was 12:47 p.m. The meeting was in Milwaukee, 93 miles north. If you're enjoying this story, do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button and drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. Trust me, you're not going to believe where this goes next. Victoria's assistant, Marcus, sprinted onto the rooftop, his tie flapping behind him like a surrender flag. "Ms. Cross, I have bad news. Unless you're about to tell me my pilot spontaneously grew a spine and showed up, I don't want to hear it." Marcus swallowed. Captain Reeves. His daughter was in a car accident. He's at Northwestern Memorial. He's not coming. The words hit her like a punch. Not coming. The $47 million Hawthorne deal, the deal that would cement Cross Industries as the dominant player in Midwest aerospace manufacturing, was evaporating in real time. Victoria's jaw clenched. Her father had built this company from a two-man machine shop in Gary, Indiana. She'd spent 5 years clawing her way to CEO, surviving a hostile board, a cheating ex-fiancé who'd tried to steal her clients, and a father who still introduced her as "my daughter who runs the company for now." This deal was supposed to be her proof, her vindication, her "I told you so" carved in stone. "Get me another pilot," she said, voice ice-cold. "Now." Marcus's face went pale. "I've called everyone. Charter services are booked. Private pilots are unavailable. There's a medical conference. Every helicopter in the region is—" "I don't care if there's a conference for flying monkeys," Victoria exploded. "Find me a pilot." Her voice echoed across the rooftop. Silence, then, "I can fly it." The voice was quiet, calm, almost apologetic. Victoria spun around. Standing near the rooftop door, holding a mop and a yellow maintenance bucket, was him, the janitor. She'd seen him before, always in the corners, always cleaning, always invisible. Early 30s, maybe. Messy brown hair, navy blue uniform with a name patch that read Ethan. He had the kind of face you'd forget in a crowd except for his eyes. They were sharp, too sharp for someone who mopped floors. Victoria stared. Then she laughed. It started as a chuckle, then grew into a full, cruel, disbelieving laugh that made Marcus wince. "I'm sorry," Victoria gasped, wiping her eyes. Did the janitor just offer to fly my $3 million helicopter?" Ethan didn't flinch. "Yes, ma'am." "Oh, this is rich." Victoria turned to Marcus, gesturing wildly. "Did you hear that? The janitor can fly. Maybe he learned from a YouTube tutorial. Maybe he played a lot of Microsoft Flight Simulator." Marcus looked mortified. "Ms. Cross, maybe we should—" No, let's entertain this." Victoria stepped closer to Ethan, arms crossed, eyes gleaming with mockery. "Tell me, Ethan, where exactly did you get your pilot's license? Online? Cereal box?" "Military," Ethan said simply. Victoria's smile widened. "Oh, military. So you flew once in the National Guard and now you think you can handle a Bell 407? "No, ma'am." "Then what?" Ethan met her gaze. "I flew Apaches and Black Hawks, Iraq, Afghanistan. 7 years." The rooftop went quiet. Victoria's smirk faltered, just for a second. Then she recovered. "Right. And I'm secretly Amelia Earhart. Look, I don't have time for this. I have over 2,000 flight hours," Ethan continued, his voice still calm, still steady. "I can fly rotary and fixed wing. I've flown in sandstorms, under fire, and through conditions that would ground most civilian pilots." Victoria's eyes narrowed. Then why the hell are you mopping my floors? Something flickered across Ethan's face. Pain. Old and deep. But he didn't answer. Instead, he said, "You need a pilot. I'm offering." Victoria stared at him. Her heart was pounding, not from anger now, but from something else. Desperation. The clock was ticking. She had 30 minutes to get to Milwaukee or lose everything, but this was insane. He was a janitor, and yet... She thought about her father's voice. "You'll never be tough enough for this business, Victoria." She thought about Gerald Hawthorne's smug face. She thought about how many people were waiting for her to fail. And then she said the words that would change everything. "Fine." Ethan blinked. "Ma'am?" Victoria stepped forward, her voice dripping with venom and challenge. "Fly this helicopter and get me to Milwaukee in one piece." She paused, smiled. "And I'll marry you." The rooftop erupted in stunned laughter. Marcus choked on air. One of the maintenance crew actually doubled over. But Ethan didn't laugh. He just looked at her, calm, unflinching, and said, "Deal." And that's when Victoria Cross realized she might have just made the biggest mistake of her life, or the best decision she'd ever make. She just didn't know which yet. Victoria's stomach dropped before the helicopter even left the ground, not from fear, from realization. She'd just bet her reputation, and jokingly her life, on a man whose last name she didn't even know. Ethan moved toward the Bell 407 like he was greeting an old friend. No hesitation, no second guessing. He circled the aircraft, running his hands along the fuselage, checking the tail rotor, inspecting the skids with the precision of a surgeon examining a patient. Victoria watched, arms crossed, her heart hammering against her ribs. Marcus whispered, "Miss Cross, we can still call this off." "And do what, Marcus?" she hissed back. "Drive? I'll miss the meeting. Charter a jet? There's no time. We're out of options." "But he's a janitor." "Who claims he flew Apaches?" Victoria's eyes never left Ethan. "Let's see if he's lying." Ethan opened the pilot's door and climbed in like he'd done it 1,000 times, because he had. Victoria's phone buzzed, a text from Gerald Hawthorne. 45 minutes. Then I'm signing with Patterson. Your move, Victoria." Her jaw clenched. She marched to the helicopter and yanked open the passenger door. Ethan was already in the pilot's seat, hands moving across the instrument panel with startling confidence, flipping switches, adjusting controls, checking gauges. The way his fingers danced across the console wasn't the fumbling of an amateur. It was muscle memory. Victoria's breath caught. "You coming or not?" Ethan asked without looking at her. She climbed in and slammed the door. "If you crash this thing, I'm haunting you in the afterlife." "Noted." Ethan's voice was calm. Too calm. Like he was about to drive to the grocery store, not pilot a multi-million-dollar aircraft. He handed her a headset. "Put this on." She did. The rotors began to spin, slowly at first, then faster. The whoop-whoop-whoop sound filled the air, vibrating through Victoria's chest. The helicopter shuddered, lifted slightly, settled again. Ethan's hands moved, throttle, collective, cyclic, with the kind of fluidity that only came from years of training. And then they lifted off, smooth, controlled, perfect. Victoria's hands gripped the seat as Chicago's skyline dropped away beneath them. The rooftop became a square, the streets became veins, the people became ants. Her heart was in her throat, not from the height, from the control. Ethan wasn't just flying. He was commanding the machine. "You okay?" His voice crackled through the headset. "Define okay," Victoria shot back, but her voice wavered. Ethan glanced at her just for a second, and something almost like a smile tugged at his lips. "First time in a helicopter?" "First time trusting a janitor with my life, yes." "Fair enough." The helicopter banked left, gliding over Lake Michigan. The water sparkled below, endless and blue. The city stretched out behind them, towers of glass and steel gleaming in the afternoon sun. Victoria's phone buzzed again. Another message. She ignored it. Because she couldn't look away from him. Ethan's face was focused, calm, but there was something else there too. Something she hadn't seen on the rooftop. Peace. This wasn't a man pretending to know what he was doing. This was a man who'd come home. "Where'd you serve?" Victoria asked, surprising herself. Ethan's jaw tightened. "Iraq. 3 tours. Afghanistan. 2. "Why'd you stop?" His hands stilled on the controls for just a fraction of a second. Then he adjusted their heading and said nothing. Victoria felt the wall go up between them, thick, immovable. She knew that wall. She'd built one herself. "You don't have to answer," she said quietly. "I know." Silence filled the headset. Then Ethan said, "My wife died. Cancer. 4 years ago." The words hit Victoria like a fist. "I had a son, 3 years old at the time. I couldn't deploy anymore, couldn't leave him, so I came home." His voice was flat, emotionless, the kind of flatness that came from repeating a painful story too many times. Honorable discharge, good pension, but no one hires ex-military pilots for civilian gigs without current commercial ratings, and I couldn't afford flight school while raising a kid alone. Victoria's throat tightened. "So you became a janitor. Needed benefits, steady hours, something that let me be home for my son." Ethan's voice cracked, just barely. "Cross Industries was hiring, I took it." God. Victoria felt something she hadn't felt in years. Shame. She'd mocked this man, laughed at him, treated him like he was nothing, and he was raising a child alone while mopping floors in the building where she got rich. "What's your son's name?" she asked softly. "Ben." "How old?" 7. "Does he know you used to fly?" Ethan's hands tightened on the controls. "He knows I was a pilot. He doesn't know I stopped because I was too broken to keep going." Victoria's chest ached. Before she could respond, Ethan's voice sharpened. "We're 10 minutes out. Where am I landing?" Victoria blinked, snapping back to reality. She pulled up the address on her phone. Hawthorne Industries, private helipad, coordinates. "I've got it." Ethan adjusted their trajectory, descending smoothly. The city of Milwaukee emerged ahead, smaller than Chicago but still sprawling. Ethan guided the helicopter toward a gleaming office tower with a rooftop helipad marked with a giant white H. He brought them down like a feather landing on water, smooth, flawless, perfect. The skids touched concrete. The rotors slowed. Silence. Victoria sat frozen, staring at him. Ethan unbuckled his harness and turned to her. "We're here." "You..." Victoria's voice cracked. "You just flew a helicopter?" "Yeah." His eyes met hers, sharp, sad, and unreadable. "So, do I get that marriage proposal? Or was that just a joke?" Victoria's brain short-circuited. He was serious. Before she could answer, her phone exploded with notifications. A message from Gerald Hawthorne. "You actually made it. Impressive. Conference room. Now." Victoria's heart raced. The deal. She had to move. She unbuckled and shoved open the door. Then she paused and looked back at Ethan. "Wait for me," she said. "Why?" "Because I'm not done with you." Ethan raised an eyebrow. "That sounds ominous." Victoria allowed herself the smallest smile. "It should." And then she ran, toward the meeting that would define her career, leaving behind the man who'd just redefined everything she thought she knew about strength. Victoria Cross had closed billion-dollar deals. She'd stared down Wall Street sharks, hostile board members, and her own father's doubt. But she'd never felt this off-balance. The Hawthorne meeting was a blur. She spoke. Numbers, projections, timelines, all the words that had been drilled into her brain. Gerald Hawthorne signed. His team applauded. $47 million secured. Victory. Except it didn't feel like victory. Because her mind was still in that helicopter, still watching Ethan's hands move across the controls like a pianist playing a symphony he'd written himself, still hearing his voice crack when he said, "Too broken to keep going." Victoria shook hands, smiled for photos, promised follow-up calls. Then she practically ran back to the helipad. Ethan was leaning against the helicopter, hands in his pockets, staring at the skyline. He looked up when she approached. "Deal done?" he asked. "Deal done." Victoria stopped a few feet away, suddenly unsure of herself. Thanks to you. Ethan shrugged. You would have figured something out. No, I wouldn't have. She stepped closer. You saved me today, and I... Her voice caught. I was horrible to you. You didn't know. That's not an excuse. Victoria's hands clenched into fists. I judged you, mocked you, laughed at you in front of everyone. Ethan met her gaze. People do that a lot. I'm used to it. The quiet acceptance in his voice gutted her. Well, you shouldn't be, Victoria said fiercely. She gestured helplessly at the helicopter. You're extraordinary. Why are you hiding? Ethan's face went hard. I'm not hiding. Yes, you are. You don't know anything about me. Then tell me. Victoria stepped closer, her voice rising. Why is one of the best pilots in the country mopping floors in my building? Ethan's jaw clenched. I told you I have a son. I know, Ben. 7 years old. You quit flying to raise him. That's noble, but it doesn't explain why you're still grounded 4 years later. Something dangerous flashed in Ethan's eyes. You want the truth? Yes. Fine. He pushed off the helicopter, closing the distance between them. My last mission, my final mission before I came home, we were extracting civilians from a combat zone. 12 people, families, kids. Victoria's breath caught. I was piloting the Black Hawk. My co-pilot was my best friend, Jake Martinez. We'd flown together for 3 years. He was supposed to rotate home the next week, get married, start a family. Ethan's voice went hollow. We took enemy fire. RPG clipped the tail rotor. I tried to stabilize, but we were losing altitude too fast. I made a choice. I prioritized the civilians, got them down safely in a field. But Jake, his voice cracked. Jake stayed on the controls with me too long. We didn't have enough altitude. When the bird hit the ground, his side took the impact. Victoria's hand flew to her mouth. He died on the way to the hospital. 28 years old, engaged to his high school sweetheart. Ethan's eyes glistened. I lived. He died. And I haven't been able to sit in a cockpit since without seeing his face. Silence crashed over them like a wave. Except today, Victoria whispered. Ethan looked away. Today I didn't have a choice. You needed help. And He exhaled sharply. I thought maybe if I could just do it, just fly one more time, I could prove I'm not completely broken. You're not broken, Victoria said fiercely. You don't know that. Yes, I do. She grabbed his arm, forcing him to look at her. You just flew me 90 miles in a machine you haven't touched in years. You landed like you were parking a car. You saved my company. You're not broken, Ethan. You're surviving. His eyes searched hers, looking for lies, looking for pity. He found neither. Why do you care? He asked quietly. Victoria didn't have an answer, or maybe she did, and it terrified her. Before she could respond, her phone rang. Her father. Of course it was her father. She answered, Dad, I can't talk right now. The hell you can't. Roger Cross's voice boomed through the speaker. I just heard you flew to Milwaukee in our helicopter with an unlicensed pilot. Victoria's blood went cold. How did you... Marcus called me. Thought I should know my daughter was risking her life and a multi-million-dollar aircraft on some random janitor. Victoria's vision went red. Marcus had no right... Marcus was protecting you. Do you have any idea what could have happened? You could have died. You could have been sued. You could have destroyed everything I built. You built? Victoria's voice rose to a shout. I've been running this company for 5 years, Dad. I just closed the Hawthorne deal. The deal you said was impossible. By breaking every safety protocol we have. By making a decision, Victoria screamed. Something you've never trusted me to do. Ethan stepped back, giving her space, but Victoria wasn't done. You want to know why I got in that helicopter? She continued, her voice shaking. Because I was desperate. Because I had no options. Because I've spent my entire life trying to prove to you that I'm good enough, and it's never enough. Silence on the other end. Then her father's voice, cold and sharp. Come to the office. Tomorrow, 8 a.m. We need to discuss your decision-making. The line went dead. Victoria stood there, trembling, phone clenched in her fist. You okay? Ethan asked softly. No. Victoria's voice cracked. I'm really not. And then, without thinking, without planning, she broke. The tears came hard and fast. 5 years of pressure, of proving herself, of being told she wasn't tough enough, smart enough, man enough to run her own company. It all came pouring out. She tried to hide it, turning away. But Ethan was faster. He didn't say anything, he just put a hand on her shoulder, steady, warm, present, and that made her cry harder. Because no one had just been there for her in so long. When the tears finally slowed, Victoria wiped her face, humiliated. Sorry, that was human, Ethan finished. That was human. She laughed bitterly. I don't get to be human. I'm a CEO. That's the dumbest thing I've heard all day. Victoria blinked. Then she actually laughed. A real surprised laugh that felt like oxygen after drowning. You just called your boss dumb. Former janitor, remember? What are you going to do? Fire me. Victoria smiled despite herself. Maybe I'll promote you instead. Ethan raised an eyebrow. To what? Chief Helicopter Officer? Why not? Victoria's mind was racing now. You're wasting your talent mopping floors. We have an aviation division, corporate pilots, training programs. I could... Stop. Ethan's voice went hard. I appreciate the offer, but I can't. Why not? Because I can't promise I won't freeze up next time. Today was... He ran a hand through his hair. Today was adrenaline. Desperation. But that doesn't mean I'm ready to fly again. But you were ready. You did it. Once. I did it once. Ethan's eyes were haunted. What if next time I can't? What if I put someone in danger because I'm too messed up to handle it? Victoria's heart broke for him. You saved 12 people in your last mission, she said softly. You got them down alive. Jake's death wasn't your fault. Tell that to his fiancée. Did you? Ethan flinched. What? Did you tell her what happened? Did you go to the funeral? His voice broke. I couldn't face her. Why? Because I should have died instead. The words exploded out of him, raw and jagged. He had a future. He had someone waiting for him. Ethan's voice dropped to a whisper. I had a wife who was already dying and a toddler who barely knew me because I was deployed all the time. Jake deserved to live more than I did. Tears streamed down his face now. Victoria didn't think, she just moved. She wrapped her arms around him and held on. Ethan stiffened, then collapsed into her, his whole body shaking with sobs he'd clearly been holding back for years. They stood there on that rooftop, two broken people holding each other up. And somewhere in that moment, something shifted. Victoria felt it in her chest, a crack in the armor she'd spent years building. When Ethan finally pulled back, his eyes were red, but clearer. Sorry, he muttered. Stop apologizing for being human, Victoria said. You just yelled at me for the same thing. He almost smiled. Then his phone buzzed. He checked it, and his whole face transformed, softened, brightened, came alive. Ben, he explained. His school's having a parent-teacher thing tonight. I have to go. Of course, Ethan hesitated. You need a ride back to Chicago? Victoria looked at him, this man who'd saved her deal, shared his trauma, and was now worried about getting her home safely. Yeah, she said. I do. They climbed back into the helicopter, but this time, when Ethan's hands touched the controls, Victoria saw something different. Not just a pilot, a father who'd sacrificed everything for his son, a hero who thought he was broken, a man who'd just cracked open her carefully controlled world. And as they lifted off into the sky, Victoria realized something terrifying. She didn't want this to end. She wanted to know him. Really know him. But first, she had to survive her father. Victoria didn't sleep that night. She lay in her penthouse apartment staring at the ceiling, replaying everything, the helicopter, the flight. Ethan's hands on the controls, his voice cracking. I should have died instead. Her phone sat on the nightstand, glowing with unanswered messages. Her father demanding she come to the office. Marcus apologizing for calling Roger. Gerald Hawthorne congratulating her on the deal. She ignored all of them, because the only person she wanted to talk to was a janitor who disappeared into the Chicago night to attend his son's school event. At 3 a.m., Victoria made a decision, a reckless, stupid, completely un-CEO-like decision. She was going to find out everything about Ethan Walker. The next morning, 6:47 a.m., Victoria stood outside Bright Horizons Elementary School in Lincoln Park, clutching a coffee she hadn't drunk, watching parents drop off their kids. She felt like a stalker. She was a stalker, but she'd called in a favor with HR, gotten Ethan's address, and tracked down where his son went to school. Because apparently closing a $47 million deal wasn't enough chaos for 1 week, she needed to add stalking her employees to the list. Then she saw him. Ethan walked up the sidewalk, holding hands with a small boy wearing a Batman backpack. The kid was talking a mile a minute, animated, excited, bouncing with energy. Ethan listened with a smile that transformed his entire face. Victoria's heart clenched. This wasn't the haunted man from yesterday. This was a father. She watched as Ethan knelt down, adjusted Ben's backpack, said something that made the kid giggle, then hugged him tight. Ben hugged back, fierce and unself-conscious, then ran toward the school entrance. Ethan stood there watching until his son disappeared inside. Only then did his smile fade. Only then did the weight return to his shoulders. Victoria stepped forward. "Does he know his dad's a hero?" Ethan spun around, eyes wide. "What are you? How did you—" "HR records. Sorry. That's creepy. I'm being creepy." Victoria held up her coffee like a shield. "I brought caffeine. Does that make it less creepy?" Ethan stared at her. "You followed me?" "Yes." "Why?" "Because—" Victoria's carefully rehearsed speech evaporated. "Because I couldn't stop thinking about you." The words hung in the air between them. Ethan's expression shifted. Surprise, confusion, something else she couldn't name. "Ms. Cross. Victoria. Just call me Victoria." "Victoria." He said her name carefully, like he was testing it. "What are you doing here?" "I don't know," she admitted. Yesterday in that helicopter you told me things, real things, and I haven't been able to think about anything else. And I realized I've worked in the same building as you for months and I never saw you. I never looked. And now I can't stop looking." Ethan's jaw tightened. "You should go to your meeting with your father." "I'm not going." "What?" "I'm not going." Victoria's voice was steady now. "I'm done performing for him, done proving myself. He'll never think I'm good enough, so why keep trying? He's your father. He's a man who only sees me as an extension of his legacy." Victoria stepped closer. "But you saw me lose it yesterday, saw me cry, and you didn't judge me. You didn't tell me to toughen up. You just stood there." Ethan looked away. "That's what people do." "No, it's not. Not in my world." Silence stretched between them, thick with things neither of them knew how to say. Then Ethan's phone rang. He checked it and winced. "It's my supervisor. I'm supposed to be at work." "Call in sick. I can't just—" "Yes, you can." Victoria's eyes burned with intensity. "Spend the day with me." "Why?" "Because I want to know who you are. The real you. Not the janitor, not the pilot. You." Ethan stared at her like she was speaking another language. Then, impossibly, he said, "Okay." They went to a diner, not a trendy brunch spot or a corporate restaurant. A real greasy spoon diner with cracked vinyl booths and a waitress named Dolores who called everyone Hon. Victoria ordered pancakes. Ethan got eggs and toast. And they talked. "Tell me about Ben," Victoria said. Ethan's face softened instantly. "He's everything. Smart, funny, obsessed with superheroes, wants to be Batman when he grows up." "Not a pilot?" Ethan's smile faltered. "He doesn't really understand what I did. He knows I was a soldier, but—" He stirred his coffee. "I don't talk about it much. Don't want him to know how broken his dad is." "You keep saying that. Broken." "Because it's true." "No." Victoria leaned forward. "You're wounded. There's a difference. Broken things can't function. You?" You're raising a kid alone, working two jobs. Two jobs? You think I didn't do my research? Victoria pulled out her phone and showed him the HR file she'd pulled. You work maintenance at Cross Industries 40 hours a week, and you work security at a warehouse 3 nights a week. That's... She did the math. That's 65 hours a week. Ethan's face went hard. I do what I have to do. For Ben. Always for Ben. His voice was fierce. He deserves a good life. Good schools. A future. I'll work 100 hours a week if that's what it takes. Victoria felt something crack open in her chest. This man, this extraordinary, selfless, infuriating man, was working himself to death for his son. And no one saw him. What was your wife like? She asked softly. Ethan's eyes clouded. Sarah. She was... He smiled, sad and distant. She was light. That's the only word for it. She made everything better just by being in the room. We met in college, got married young, probably too young. But it worked because she was patient, and I was stupid in love. Victoria's throat tightened. When she got diagnosed, stage 4 pancreatic cancer, we had 6 months. That's it. 6 months to say everything, do everything, be everything. Ethan's voice cracked. I took leave from the military, came home, tried to make every day count, but it wasn't enough. It's never enough when you're losing someone. I'm sorry, Victoria whispered. She made me promise. Ethan's hands clenched around his coffee cup. Made me promise I'd keep flying. Said it was my gift, my purpose, but I couldn't. After she died, after Jake died, I couldn't get back in a cockpit without... He broke off, breathing hard. Without what? Without wanting to crash. The words came out strangled. That's why I stopped. Because I didn't trust myself anymore. Because part of me wanted to follow them. Victoria's vision blurred with tears. But you didn't. No. Because of Ben. He needed me. Still needs me. So I wake up, I work, I show up. Even when I don't want to. Ethan looked at her, eyes raw. That's not heroic. That's just survival. That's the most heroic thing I've ever heard. Ethan shook his head. You don't understand. Yes, I do. Victoria reached across the table and grabbed his hand. My fiancé, ex-fiancé, left me 3 years ago. We were planning the wedding. I was building the business. Everything was perfect except it wasn't. Ethan waited. He cheated with my assistant. And when I found out, you know what he said? Victoria's voice went cold. You're too cold, Victoria. Too focused on work. I needed someone who actually felt something. That's the truth. Victoria's laugh was bitter. I am cold. I built walls so high no one could get in. Because if they can't get in, they can't hurt you, right? Ethan squeezed her hand. Right. They sat there, 2 wounded people holding hands in a diner, and for the first time in years, Victoria felt seen. Not as a CEO, not as Roger Cross's daughter, as Victoria. Just Victoria. Can I tell you something? Ethan asked. Anything. Yesterday, when I got in that helicopter, I was terrified, not of flying, of feeling, because I'd gone numb. For years, I just existed. Work, Ben, sleep, repeat. No joy, no pain, just numb. But then you challenged me, and I felt something I hadn't felt in years. What? Alive. Ethan's eyes locked on hers. For the first time since Sarah died, I felt alive. Victoria's heart thundered in her chest. She was falling. God help her, she was falling for a man who mopped her floors. Her phone buzzed. Her father again. She ignored it. Come with me, she said suddenly. Where? My office, I want to show you something. Cross Industries, Aviation Division, 10:15 a.m. Victoria led Ethan through the building, not through the maintenance corridors, but through the front, past the reception desk where people stared, past the executive offices where her father's secretary gaped, straight to the aviation hangar. Inside, 2 helicopters sat gleaming under fluorescent lights. Engineers worked on maintenance. Pilots reviewed checklists. Ethan stopped dead. What is this? Your future. Victoria turned to him. I want to hire you. Not as a janitor. As a pilot. Full salary, full benefits, flight school if you need certifications updated. You'd train corporate pilots, lead safety protocols, maybe even— No. The word was sharp, final. Ethan, I can't. His face was pale. I told you, one flight doesn't fix years of trauma. Then let me help you fix it. Victoria grabbed his arms. You're too talented to waste, too good. Your son deserves to see his father do what he was meant to do. My son deserves a father who doesn't put himself in danger. Ethan pulled away. What if I freeze? What if I panic? What if you don't? Victoria challenged. What if you're exactly as incredible as I think you are? Ethan stared at her, torn, terrified, tempted. Then a voice cut through the hangar like a blade. Victoria Lynn Cross, explain yourself. Victoria's blood turned to ice. Her father stood in the doorway, flanked by 2 security guards and Marcus, who looked like he wanted to melt into the floor. Roger Cross was 65, silver-haired, and radiated authority like a judge delivering a death sentence. His eyes raked over Ethan with open disgust. This, he said coldly, is the man who risked my daughter's life. Dad, he flew an unauthorized aircraft with no clearance, no flight plan, and no insurance coverage. If something had happened, we'd be ruined. But nothing happened. This time, Roger stepped forward. You're reckless, Victoria, just like your mother, and I won't let you destroy what I've built because you're infatuated with some— Finish that sentence, Victoria said, her voice deadly quiet. I dare you. Roger's eyes narrowed. He's a janitor. He's a decorated military pilot with more flight hours than half our team combined. He's beneath you. The words hung in the air like poison. Ethan's face went blank, the kind of blank that came from years of being dismissed. And Victoria snapped. You know what, Dad? You're right. He is beneath me because he's humble, he's selfless. He puts his son before his ego. Everything you've never been. Roger's face flushed red. How dare— I dare because I'm done. Victoria's voice echoed through the hangar. I'm done seeking your approval. Done letting you control me. Done pretending I need you. You walk away from this company. You walk away from everything. Then I guess I'm walking. Silence. Everyone in the hangar stared. Roger Cross looked like she'd slapped him. Then Ethan spoke. His voice was quiet, but it carried. Sir, with respect, your daughter is the strongest person I've ever met. And if you can't see that, you're blind. Roger turned on him. I'm nobody, I know. Just a janitor. But even I can see what you refuse to. She doesn't need your validation. She never did. Victoria's heart stopped. Ethan met her eyes. She's already extraordinary. And that's when Victoria Cross, CEO, Ice Queen, woman who never cried in public, felt tears streaming down her face. Her father looked between them, disgust and disbelief warring on his face. Then he turned and walked out. Victoria stood there, shaking, breathless. Ethan stepped closer. You okay? No, she whispered. But I will be. And for the first time in her life, she believed it. 3 weeks later, the rooftop where it all began was empty, except for 2 people and a helicopter. Victoria stood at the edge, looking out over Chicago. The city glowed in the evening light, gold and amber and alive. Behind her, Ethan approached slowly. You wanted to see me? He asked. Victoria turned. Her heart kicked against her ribs like it always did when she saw him now. 3 weeks since she'd walked away from her father. 3 weeks since she'd restructured Cross Industries with herself as sole decision-maker. 3 weeks since she'd convinced Ethan to come to flight therapy sessions with a trauma specialist who worked with veterans. He looked different now. Lighter. The shadows under his eyes had faded. He smiled more. I have something for you, Victoria said. She handed him an envelope. Ethan opened it, his brow furrowing. Then his eyes went wide. This is a contract, Chief Aviation Officer. Full salary, benefits, flight school covered. Flexible hours so you can still pick up Ben from school. Victoria's voice shook slightly. And there's more. Skytech Industries, The company we partnered with on the Hawthorne deal. They want you to do a demonstration flight at their annual Tech Expo next month. If you agree, they'll sponsor a full scholarship fund for Ben, college, everything. Ethan stared at the papers like they might disappear. Why? He whispered. Because you deserve it. Because the world needs to see what I see. Victoria stepped closer. Because you're not broken, Ethan Walker. You never were. His eyes glistened. I'm still scared. I know. But you don't have to be scared alone anymore. Ethan looked up at her and something shifted in his expression. Something raw and real and terrifying. That proposal you made, he said quietly. The marriage thing. Was it really a joke? Victoria's breath caught. Because I've been thinking about it, Ethan continued. A lot. And I know it's insane. I know we barely know each other. I know I'm a mess and you're... He gestured helplessly. You're you. But you make me want to fly again. Not helicopters. Life. You make me want to actually live. Tears blurred Victoria's vision. Ben drew a picture yesterday, Ethan said, pulling out his phone. He showed her a crayon drawing, 3 stick figures holding hands. He labeled it Dad, Ben, and Victory. Victoria laughed through her tears. Victory. He can't spell Victoria yet. Ethan smiled. But he told me you're his hero, because you believed in me when no one else did, including me. Victoria couldn't speak. Ethan pocketed his phone and dropped to one knee. Her heart stopped. I don't have a ring, he said, and this is probably the worst proposal in history. But Victoria Cross, will you take a chance on a broken pilot who's learning to fly again? Victoria pulled him to his feet and kissed him. Hard, desperate, real. When they broke apart, she whispered, Yes, yes, 1,000 times yes. Ethan grinned, the first real, unguarded smile she'd ever seen from him. Want to go for a flight? He asked. Victoria looked at the helicopter, then at him. Always. They climbed in together. As the rotors spun and Chicago dropped away beneath them, Victoria realized something. She'd spent her whole life climbing, fighting, proving, conquering. But this felt like flying. Ethan's hand found hers on the console. Where to? He asked. Victoria squeezed his fingers and smiled. Home. And they lifted off into the sunset. 2 broken people who'd found each other in the wreckage. Finally whole. Finally free. Finally flying. If this story moved you, hit that subscribe button and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. Because stories like this, about hidden heroes, second chances, and love that rebuilds broken people, these are the stories that remind us that strength isn't about never falling. It's about getting back up. It's about finding someone who sees you when you're invisible. And it's about daring to fly again.